From Tarsus to triumph, the extraordinary life of Apostle Paul, a man consumed by hate, driven by ambition, who spent his early years seeking the destruction of the church. But during a journey, he has an encounter with the risen Lord that changes everything. He becomes a man transformed, filled with love, zeal, and passion to preach the gospel despite fierce opposition. This is the incredible story of how Saul became the Apostle Paul. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever been so wrong about something or someone that when you discovered the truth, your whole life changed? Well, that's exactly what happened to Paul. Let's find out how. Paul was born in the city of Tarsus in a region called Cilicia, now southern Turkey. He was a Hebrew of Hebrew descent, being a member of the tribe of Benjamin. His family were all Pharisees who followed the strictest interpretation of the law, so naturally young Saul grew up hating the Christians since they were teaching that salvation could be received by Gentiles, not just Jews. And not only that Jesus was the Messiah. As far as Saul was concerned, they were nothing but a bunch of troublemakers who needed to be stopped. As a young man, Saul was sent to Jerusalem to study under the famous Rabbi Gamaliel, where he trained for 3 years and learned all the laws and traditions of his people. After finishing his studies, he went back home and started practicing his religion. He was zealous for his beliefs and wanted everyone around him to follow the same path as him. He was even involved in the stoning of Stephen, the first Christian martyr, which basically means that Saul was violent, okay? Stephen was the first person ever to be killed because of their faith in Jesus Christ. Wow. After Stephen was killed, Saul began his mission to persecute the church wherever he could find it, and he did. That led him to the city of Damascus, which was under Roman rule at the time. It was a major trading center for merchants coming from Arabia, Mesopotamia, and even India. But Saul wasn't interested in the culture or the trade. All he wanted was to find Christians and take them back to Jerusalem to be punished. On his way to Damascus, Saul met some friends who told him that they had business in the city and asked if he would accompany them. Now, typically, most scholars believe that these men were fellow Jewish religious leaders who shared Saul's beliefs and goals, and that they were also traveling to Damascus to try and stop the growing number of Christians there. One day, while Saul and his friends were still on the road, something extraordinary happened. They were suddenly surrounded by a bright light that came from heaven, so bright that Saul fell to the ground and everyone else did too. But then Saul heard a voice saying, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" He replied, "Who are you, Lord?" And the voice answered, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, but get up and go into the city, and there you will be told what you must do." Now, after this experience, Saul was totally confused. He didn't know what to think or what to do next, so he decided to wait until he got to Damascus. Then he entered the city and waited in fasting and prayers for 3 days, went to a house where some Christians were staying. They explained to him that he had just had a vision of Jesus, and they told him that Jesus wants him to become one of his disciples. They also said that he needed to be baptized before he could join them. God appeared to Simon, a disciple, to go and pray for Paul. He explained to him that he had had a vision of Jesus, and he told him that Jesus wants him to become one of his disciples. He also said that he needed to be baptized after his salvation and that he would become a follower of Jesus. After hearing all this, Saul felt like he was being called by God to follow Jesus, so he decided to do it. He was baptized, and from that moment on, his life changed completely. He was no longer the same person who persecuted Christians and tried to destroy the church. Instead, he became someone new who dedicated his entire life to serving and spreading the message of Jesus Christ. And guess what? This event is recorded in the Bible, specifically in the book of Acts, chapters 9 and 22. There, we can read all about how Saul, who later became known as Paul, had a life-changing experience on the road to Damascus. But why is this important for us today? Well, because it shows us that no matter how far we stray from God, He is always willing to forgive us and use us for His purposes. Even if we feel lost or don't know what to do next, all we need to do is trust in Jesus and He will show us the way. Saul began preaching about Jesus and performing miracles, which made many people believe in him. However, the Jews didn't like what he was doing, so they tried to kill him. He escaped the city and went to live in Arabia for 3 years. After 3 years, Paul returned to preach in Damascus again, but soon he had to escape again because the Jews were planning to kill him. On his way out of the city, he met a disciple named Barnabas, who was from Cyprus. Barnabas liked Paul and thought that he was a great preacher, so he brought him back to Antioch in Syria to help. Out with the church there, in Antioch, Paul continued preaching and gaining followers. At this time, the church in Antioch was mainly made up of Gentiles, which was a problem because the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem thought that salvation should only come through circumcision and following the Jewish laws. This caused a lot of conflict between the two groups. To solve this problem, Paul and some other leaders decided to get together and talk things out. They came up with what's called the Council of Jerusalem, where they discussed how Gentiles could become Christians without having to follow all the Jewish laws. In the end, they decided that Gentiles didn't need to be circumcised or keep kosher laws in order to be saved. They just needed to believe in Jesus. Wow, this decision was very important because it allowed Christianity to spread to everyone, not just Jews. After that, Paul felt called by God to leave Antioch and go on a missionary journey to spread the gospel. He took along Barnabas, and together they traveled to different places, planting churches and making disciples. During one of his journeys, Paul visited the island of Malta after surviving a shipwreck. There he healed the father of a local leader named Publius who had malaria. Publius showed gratitude by hosting them for 3 months and providing them with everything they needed. During that time, Paul performed many miracles and helped spread the Christian faith in the area. Eventually, they had to say goodbye and continue their journey. While sailing, they experienced another shipwreck on the coast of Italy. Everyone survived and landed in Rome, where they were arrested for causing trouble by spreading their religious beliefs. Surprisingly, this turned out to be a good thing because Paul used the opportunity to share the gospel with many influential people, including Caesar's household. He was finally set free after 2 years and returned to Antioch, but shortly after, he was arrested again and taken to Jerusalem. Once again, he defended himself and proclaimed his faith in Jesus, but the Jewish leaders weren't happy about it and wanted to kill him. A riot almost broke out and the Roman governor had to step in to save Paul. Paul was put under guard and taken to Caesarea Maritima, where he waited for a decision from the Roman emperor. 2 years passed without any news, so Paul decided to appeal directly to Caesar. He was sent to Rome as a prisoner, chained and guarded by soldiers. But even in prison, Paul kept preaching and converting people to Christianity. After 2 more years, he was finally set free and started his 3rd missionary journey. He traveled all over the Mediterranean, visiting churches and strengthening the faith of their members. But unfortunately, this journey ended in disaster. When Paul reached Jerusalem again, he was arrested and beaten. To save his life, a centurion named Julius brought him to Rome as a prisoner once again, but this time no one came to see him, nobody supported him. Although Paul was alone and treated unjustly, he never lost hope. He knew that God was with him and that he would one day be set free, and guess what? He was right. The Bible does not explicitly state how the Apostle Paul died, but tradition holds that he was beheaded in Rome. This is a common belief, with some sources suggesting it was part of Nero's persecution of Christians following the Great Fire in Rome. What an amazing story, right? It reminds us that no matter what happens in our lives, we should never lose faith in God. Also, Paul was a man who risked everything to follow his beliefs. Even though he faced persecution, imprisonment, and even death threats, he never gave up on sharing the gospel with others. That's something we should all strive to do. So my question for you is, how can you share the love of Jesus with others, especially in difficult situations? You might not be facing the same challenges as Paul, but you do face unique challenges in your own life. How can you be like him and still be true to yourself? Well, I hope this video has inspired you to be courageous and faithful like Paul. These Bible stories have been written for us to have examples to emulate and to help us know more about our faith. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and join our community. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.